The celestial whisper jerked from the hyperspace rift like a drunk stumbler quitting a bar at 3 a.m. with about as much grace. Captain Kira Vial, a woman of perpetual sarcasm and short nerves, reeled against her command chair, throwing a sideways glance at the ship's flickering readouts. "So, that was a smooth transition," she muttered, her voice dripping with irony. "I give it a solid 6 out of 10. The bridge of the Whisper was a mess of flashing screens and half-completed circuits, the kind that gave engineers premature gray hairs and captains premature heart attacks. The crew, jostled like dice in a gambler's cup, peeled themselves off various surfaces with a symphony of grunts and colorful language. Turk, the ship's navigator and self-proclaimed guy who knows stuff, squinted at his console like it owed him money. Captain," he began, hesitating as if his next words were a particularly vile curse. "Spit it out, Turk, before I die of suspense," Kira snapped, rubbing a sore spot on her temple. Turk hesitated another second because why rush when you're delivering bad news? "Earth's gone," Kira stared. "Gone. Like misplaced your keys gone or vanished into the void gone." "I'm leaning towards the second option," Turk said, waving a hand at the empty stellar map. "No star, no sol, no nothing. It's like someone decided to turn off the lights and forgot to pay the bill." "Fantastic," Kira muttered, throwing her hands up. "First, hyperspace plays kickball with our ship, and now Earth's taken a vacation without telling us. What's next?" The coffee machine stops working. Across the bridge, Jax, the ship's engineer and reigning champion in the holding things together with duct tape category, snorted. "I can't fix the universe, Captain, but I can try kicking the coffee machine." Kira let out a sharp laugh, the kind that danced dangerously close to hysteria. "You do that, Jax. Meanwhile, let's figure out how not to die out here." She turned to her first officer, Lena, who was busy fiddling with her own console. "Lena, please tell me this is just some cosmic joke and we're actually still in Kansas," Kira said, attempting to dig through the layers of sarcasm to find a nugget of hope. Lena's lips twitched in a semblance of a smile. "I wish I could, Captain. But unless Kansas has decided to relocate to a starless void, I'd say we're screwed." "Marvelous," Kira said, rubbing her eyes. "Just the kind of day I'd expect in this line of work." Turk cleared his throat, a sound like gravel in a tumble dryer. "There are implications," he started. His tone suggesting implications was shorthand for "we're royally screwed." "Oh, do enlighten us," Kira said, her voice a flat monotone. "I'm dying to know the cosmic joke we've been dropped into." He swiveled his chair towards her, his expression serious enough to make a funeral look like a circus. "No Earth means no home base, no supply lines, and no backup. We're floating in the interstellar equivalent of nowhere." "Right. We've got supplies for, what, a month?" "2 if we stretch the rations and get real cozy," Jax offered, picking at a loose thread on his sleeve. "Maybe we can start a garden on the observation deck." "Perfect, a garden," Kira said, thinking she might prefer strangling herself with Jax's thread. "Or maybe we could just plant our hopes and dreams and see if they sprout first." Lena leaned back, arms crossed. "Spiritual implications aside, there's also the minor detail of our mission." "Ah, the mission," Kira echoed, almost wistful. "Remember when our biggest problem was charting rift zones and cataloging space dust? Good times." A soft chime interrupted, emanating from the console like an unwelcome guest at a dinner party. Turk checked the readout, eyes narrowing. "Captain, we've got an incoming transmission." Kira perked up. "From Earth, the Great Vanishing Acts PR team," Turk shrugged. "Unknown origin, but it's coming from within the rift zone." "Of course it is," Kira said, because why wouldn't a mysterious signal pop up in the least convenient place possible? She gestured casually. "Put it through. Let's see what the universe has got to say for itself." The screen flickered to life, a wash of static resolving into a jagged waveform. The voice that followed was distorted like it had been put through a blender and reassembled by a drunk technician. "Vessel Celestial Whisper. Receiving. Respond." "This is Captain Kira Vial of the Celestial Whisper," Kira replied, cool as a cryopod. "Whoever you are, speak fast. We seem to be running low on patience." There was a pause, the kind that stretched just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. Then the voice crackled back. Coordinates provided. Assistance required. Lena arched an eyebrow. Assistance, huh? Well, at least we're not alone in the universe's biggest cosmic joke. Kira chuckled, the sound dry and humorless. Misery loves company, and apparently we're all one big happy family out here. Jax leaned in, squinting at the flickering coordinates on the screen. These put us smack in the middle of rift space, he murmured. Could be a trap. Or it could be the only lifeline we've got, Kira countered, but she knew he had a point. Out here, trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. Turk, plot a course. But keep us ready to bolt if this turns out to be a cosmic prank. Turk nodded, fingers dancing over the console. Course laid in, Captain. Kira sat back, tapping her fingers against the armrest, her mind a whirl of cynical thoughts and wry observations. All right, crew. Let's go see what the universe has in store for us. Maybe we'll get lucky and find someone who knows what the hell is going on. Lena chuckled, a sound like shattered glass. Or maybe we'll just find more questions without answers. Because that's our luck, right? Probably, Kira admitted, allowing herself a thin smile. But hey, at least we're consistent. The ship shuddered as it altered course, plunging deeper into the unknown, a solitary speck in a void that seemed to swallow all light and hope. The crew held their breath, each lost in their own thoughts, fears, and grim acceptance of the situation. You know, Jax mused, breaking the silence. If we ever make it back, we should really start a travel blog. How not to get lost in hyperspace. I'm sure there's a market. Kira snorted, a rare flicker of genuine amusement lighting her eyes. If we make it back, Jax, drinks are on me. Lena nodded. And the first round better be strong enough to make us forget we ever signed up for this. As the celestial whisper surged toward the coordinates, Kira couldn't help but wonder if they were heading toward salvation or just deeper into the universe's cruel joke. Whatever awaited them, she knew one thing for certain. They would face it together, with snark and sarcasm as their only defenses against the vast, indifferent void. Because in the end, what else did humans have but each other, and a space adventure that was definitely going to make one hell of a story when they got back? The celestial whisper barreled through the void, a tin can with an attitude problem. Captain Kira Vial sat in her command chair like a sullen queen on a very uncomfortable throne. She eyed the crackling static on the main screen, wishing it represented anything but their current reality. Turk, remind me why we're talking to thin air instead of a nice, friendly space station. Turk, who had the look of a man perpetually one coffee short of full functionality, tapped his console. Well, Captain, I'd love to give you a smart answer, but this hyperspace interference is like trying to have a conversation at a death metal concert. Jax, leaning against the bulkhead like a rebellious teenager, chimed in. Who knew the universe would be this committed to keeping us in the dark? Kira sighed, the sound heavy with the weight of cosmic irony. Let's try the stations again. Maybe the universe will take pity on us and clear up the line. Lena, who had the demeanor of someone who'd rather be anywhere but here, nodded. Worth a shot. Not like we've got a better plan. Turk punched in the frequency for the nearest space station, an outpost charmingly named Zeta 12, because creativity in naming had clearly been lost along with Earth. Zeta 12 Outpost, this is the celestial whisper. Do you copy? Over. The response was a garbled mess, like someone took a blender to the words before spitting them out. Zeta 12, celestial copy, over. Sounds like they're really glad to hear from us, Jax remarked dryly. Or maybe they're just mocking us with bad reception. They're probably just bored, Lena said, smirking. I'd be too if I was stuck on a floating metal box in the middle of nowhere. Zeta 12, repeat. We can't make out the transmission. This is the celestial whisper, Kira said, hoping that saying the ship's name like it was an incantation might miraculously clear up the signal. More static crackled through the speaker, the universal equivalent of a shrug. Anomaly, Earth, unknown. Kira rubbed her temples, wondering if a headache was the kind of companion she needed right now. Well, that was informative. Thanks, Zeta-12. We'll just assume everything's hunky-dory. Jack stretched, cracking his knuckles with the enthusiasm of a man about to break something. What now, Cap? We could try another station, but I'm not holding my breath for a coherent conversation. Try the next one, Kira said, feigning optimism like a bad actor in a community play. Maybe we'll get lucky, or whatever the universe's equivalent of that is. Turk switched frequencies, his expression a mix of boredom and mild curiosity, like a cat staring at an empty food bowl. This is the celestial whisper calling Echo 9. Do you copy? Over. The response was more of the same, a symphony of static with a few distinguishable notes. Echo 9, whisper rift anomaly. Lena rolled her eyes. We could make a game out of this. First one to decode a full sentence wins. Wins what? Jack snorted. A pat on the back and a slightly less shitty day. Echo 9, please repeat. You're coming through broken and stupid, Kira said, because politeness was overrated when you were talking to a cosmic mess. The universe, in its infinite benevolence, decided to offer nothing more than a buzzing silence. Well, that was enlightening, Kira announced to no one in particular, the sarcasm in her voice thick enough to choke on. Let's face it, we're in the dark and the cosmos couldn't care less. Turk ran a hand through his hair, looking like a man considering a career change to anything that didn't involve space travel. Captain, we might as well be shouting into the void. Which, coincidentally, we are. Just as Kira was about to drown her frustrations in the empty promises of space coffee, the scanner pinged. The sound was so unexpected it might as well have been a gunshot. Captain, we've got a ship approaching, Lena said, flicking a switch to bring up the visual. The screen displayed an alien vessel, sleek and foreboding. It looked like it belonged to a race that thought ominous was a design aesthetic. The name Velatrix shimmered across its hull like a bad omen. Great company, Jax muttered. The universe's way of saying surprise, you're not alone in this cosmic dumpster fire. Turk adjusted the comms, opening a channel. This is the celestial whisper to the vessel Velatrix. Do you copy? Over. A moment later the screen flickered, revealing an alien face that might have been considered handsome if you liked your features sharp enough to cut yourself on. Celestial whisper, this is Commander Zal of the Velatrix. We received your distress signal. Oh, thank the stars, Kira said, her voice dripping with exaggerated relief. We were beginning to think we'd have to start talking to each other. Zal didn't smile, further proof that humor was not a universal language. We detected the anomaly you're investigating. Your Earth is no longer present in this sector. Tell us something we don't know, Jack said, throwing his hands up. Like where we can find a good burger joint around here, Kira waved a hand for silence. Commander Zal, any idea what's causing this rift? The alien paused, clearly choosing his words with the same care one might use to defuse a bomb. The rift is unstable, shifting, dangerous. We avoid it. Avoidance. Now there's a strategy I can get behind, Lena quipped, folding her arms. Commander Zal, do you have any advice for a ship caught on the wrong side of the cosmic prank? Kira asked, injecting her words with as much charm as sarcasm would allow. Stay clear of the rift, Zal said, as if imparting ancient wisdom. Beyond that, you are on your own. Fantastic, Turk said, giving the console a pat like it might feel reassured. On our own. Just the way we like it, Kira nodded, already mentally adding Zal to her list of people she wouldn't invite to a party. Thanks for the heads up, Commander. We'll just keep doing what we've been doing, flying blind and hoping not to crash. The screen flickered as Zal gave a curt nod. Good fortune, celestial whisper. You'll need it. The connection cut off, leaving the bridge in a silence only slightly less oppressive than the void outside. Well, that was fun, Jack said, pushing off from the bulkhead. Any other brilliant plans, Cap? Kira stared at the empty screen, feeling the weight of the vast, indifferent void pressing down on her. We stick to what we know. Keep trying the stations, figure out what we can. And if we're lucky, the universe might just throw us a bone. Or a meteor, Lena added, ever the optimist. Let's keep our fingers crossed for a bone, Kira said, a wry grin tugging at her lips. And maybe a clue about what the hell happened to Earth. Turk tapped his fingers on the console, the rhythm like a heartbeat. Back to shouting into the void, Kira nodded, feeling the familiar mix of frustration and grim determination settle in her chest. Yeah, it's not like we've got anything better to do. The crew resumed their positions, each of them a cog in the universe's least funny joke. The celestial whisper hummed through the void, a solitary voice in a starless expanse, clinging to hope and humor in equal measure. "Hey, Captain," Jack said, his tone light despite the gravity of their situation. "If we do crack this mystery, I'm expecting a medal." And a raise, Kira chuckled, the sound like a light in the darkness. "You'll get both, Jax, assuming there's an Earth to go back to." The ship continued its lonely trek, the crew bound by a shared purpose and the knowledge that they were all that stood between themselves and oblivion. In the grim darkness of the future, humor was their only weapon, and they wielded it with all the skill of seasoned warriors. And so they pressed on into the unknown, their path lit by the flicker of dying stars and the hope that somewhere beyond the void lay the answers they sought. The celestial whisper continued its noble voyage through the cosmos, a tin can clinging to relevance in a universe that clearly couldn't care less. Captain Kira Vial sat in her chair, her expression a mix of grim determination and a faint hope that the next star system might have decent Wi-Fi. In the belly of the ship, where things tended to go wrong with alarming regularity, Dr. Miko Thal, the ship's resident scientist and part-time mad genius, fiddled with a mess of wires and circuits that probably violated several safety protocols. Turk, looking like he needed about 3 more coffees and a vacation, hovered nearby. "So, Doc, please tell me this is your way of making the rift anomaly just disappear." Miko gave Turk a look that suggested he might be better off sticking his head out an airlock. "If by just disappear you mean blow us all to high heaven, then sure, this is exactly that." "Great, just checking," Turk replied, rubbing his temples with the enthusiasm of a man contemplating early retirement. Kira's voice crackled over the intercom, its sarcastic lilt managing to cut through the drudgery of wires and blinking lights. "Miko found anything that isn't a new way to kill us?" Miko leaned back, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "Actually, Captain, I might have something, and it only has a 50% chance of catastrophic failure." "Sounds like a win to me," Kira said, her voice dripping with more irony than a blacksmith's workshop. Turk raised an eyebrow. "You're saying that like it's the good news. Well, it could be worse." "It could be 51%, Miko offered with a grin that did little to reassure. "Yeah, that 1% makes all the difference," Turk grumbled, glancing at the setup, which looked suspiciously like something a teenager had pieced together for a science fair. "Captain, you might want to come down here," Miko said, tapping a console that hummed ominously. "I've got a theory about the rift." "An Earth on the bridge," Kira sighed, a sound that spoke volumes about the trials of leadership. "On my way, Doc. If anything explodes before I get there, try to record it for posterity." The corridors of the Celestial Whisper were a maze of metal and regret, but Kira navigated them with the ease of someone who knew every dent and scuff by heart. She entered the lab to find Miko and Turk looking like conspirators in a bad heist movie. "So, what's the bad news?" Kira asked, folding her arms. Miko gestured to a holographic display projecting a swirling mess of lines and data points. "This, Captain, is our rift, or at least the anomaly we've been dancing with. And it's a hell of a dance partner," Kira quipped, eyeing the display with skepticism. "What's it telling us?" "That it's growing," Miko said, his voice carrying the weight of a cosmic joke nobody was laughing at. "And I think it's linked to why Earth vanished." Turk glanced between them, his expression a mix of curiosity and mild panic. "Linked how?" "Like they went out for milk and never came back kind of linked. More like someone opened a door to an entirely different universe and forgot to close it," Miko explained, gesturing to a series of spikes in the data. Kira rubbed her chin, the wheels in her head turning with a creaky determination. So we're dealing with a rift that's snacking on planets for breakfast, pretty much, Miko confirmed, fiddling with a stray wire that sparked dangerously. And it's getting hungrier. Well, that's just great, Kira said, her voice a blend of sarcasm and resignation. Any idea how we deal with this interstellar appetite? Best guess. Miko said, pulling up a new set of data. We need to find the source. The epicenter of the anomaly. If we can stabilize it, we might just save what's left of our sector. Stabilize a rift, Turk repeated, as if testing the taste of the words. Sounds about as fun as juggling grenades, Kira shrugged, a motion that seemed to embody her leadership style. It's not like we've got a lot of options. Either we fix it, or we start looking for new real estate. Well, I've always wanted to visit a parallel universe, Miko said, a glint of mischief in his eye. Think of all the new species to annoy, Turk chuckled despite himself. As long as they've got coffee, I'm in. Kira turned to leave, already formulating a plan that hinged on a lot of ifs and maybes. All right, we'll plot a course to the epicenter. Let's show this rift we don't scare easy. Miko saluted with a mock seriousness. Aye, Captain. One hell of a rift adventure coming up. Back on the bridge, Kira rejoined Lena and Jax, who were engaged in a heated debate about the merits of synthetic versus real cheese. The debate ended abruptly as Kira filled them in. So we're heading towards the epicenter of a cosmic anomaly that's been eating planets like popcorn, Kira said, watching their faces for signs of panic or, more likely, exasperation. Jax whistled low. Sounds like a party. Should I bring snacks? Lena shrugged. If it's going to be our last meal, it might as well be decent. Settle in, Kira instructed, her fingers dancing over the console with practiced ease. We've got a rift to wrangle, and I want all eyes on deck. The celestial whisper hummed to life, engines kicking into gear with the enthusiasm of a racehorse at the starting line. The crew settled into their tasks, each one aware that the next step could be their last. Captain, Lena said, her tone betraying a hint of anticipation. You really think we can fix this? Kira considered the question, the weight of leadership pressing down like a heavy cloak. I don't know, Lena, but I do know this, we won't go down without a fight. And if the universe has a sense of humor, maybe it'll let us win. Jax chuckled, leaning back in his seat. Here's hoping the universe isn't a stand-up comedian. The ship hurtled toward the rift's heart, its crew held together by grim determination and a shared sense of humor in the face of cosmic ridiculousness. As the stars streaked by, Kira allowed herself a small smile, the kind that spoke of defiance and stubborn hope. Ready or not, here we come, she murmured to the stars, the rift, and whatever lay beyond. In the vast darkness of space, humor might have been a frail shield, but it was the one they wielded best. As they approached the epicenter, things started to get interesting. The ship shuddered, a new symphony of rattles and groans echoing through the corridors. The crew gripped their stations, riding the turbulence with a mixture of fear and fatalistic humor. Anyone else feel like they're in a blender? Jax asked, his voice a little too calm. Hey, at least it's not boring, Lena replied, holding onto her console like a lifeboat in a storm. Miko's voice crackled over the comms, a note of glee in his words. Captain, readings are off the charts. We're definitely in the right place. Define right place, Kira shot back, adjusting the course with a steady hand. Right usually means not imminent death. Then call it the slightly less wrong place, Miko replied, unfazed by the chaos around him. Turk, ever the voice of reason, or at least the closest thing they had to it, chimed in. Captain, I've got a visual on the rift. It's beautiful in a terrifying, soul-crushing way. Kira glanced at the screen where the rift danced like a cosmic storm, colors and energies swirling in a deadly ballet. Beautiful, she echoed, her tone wry. Remind me to get my eyes checked when this is over. The ship bucked, a violent shudder that sent tools and loose items flying. Hold on, everyone. Kira barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. Captain, rift activity is increasing, Lena reported, her eyes glued to the data streaming across her console. If we don't stabilize it soon, we're going to become part of the scenery. Suggestions? Kira asked, scanning the bridge for any sign of a light bulb moment. Miko's voice came through, the kind of calm that only came from someone who fully understood the chaos. Captain, I've got a theory. If we can modulate our engines to match the rift's frequency, we might just stabilize it, and by might you mean. Turk prompted, not liking the vagueness one bit. I mean it's the best bad idea we've got, Miko replied, his grin practically audible. Kira hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. All right, let's do it. Jax, Lena, work with Miko to tune the engines. We're going to match this rift's beat. Jax cracked his knuckles, ready to dive into the fray. You heard the captain. Let's turn this space disco into a waltz. The bridge thrummed with activity, each crew member focused on their task. As the ship's engines began to modulate, the rift's chaotic dance shifted ever so slightly into something approaching order. Captain, it's working, Turk said, awe and disbelief mingling in his voice. The rift stabilizing. Kira allowed herself a small, victorious smile. Keep it steady. We're not done yet. The celestial whisper hummed in harmony with the rift, a bold defiance against the chaos of the universe. In that moment, the crew found themselves united by a singular purpose, their humor and determination shining brightly against the void. All right, team, Kira said, her voice carrying the weight of command and camaraderie. Let's show this rift what humanity's made of. And so they did, pushing the boundaries of their ship and themselves in a dance with destiny, their laughter echoing through the corridors like a beacon of resistance in the darkest of times. The celestial whisper cut through the void, straddling the razor-thin line between miraculous success and catastrophic failure. Inside, the crew clung to their consoles, the reality of their situation settling in like a bad hangover that just wouldn't quit. This was no ordinary day in the galaxy. This was the kind of day that made you wish you'd called in sick. Right, Kira said, eyeing the rift's now languid dance. So, we hit the pause button on the universe's breakdown. Now what? Maybe we send a nice thank you card, Jax mused. Dear Cosmic Anomaly, thanks for almost annihilating us, Zoxo, Turk snorted, shaking his head. You know what, Jax, that's not a bad idea. If I survive this, I'm sending one to my ex-wife. Lena, ever the realist, glanced up from her console, her eyes sharp with skepticism. Captain, there's something else. I'm picking up readings. She was cut off by a sudden, violent shudder that made the whole ship groan like an old man getting out of bed. All heads turned in unison to the viewport, where something even more alarming than the rift was unfolding. What the hell is that? Kira demanded, pointing at the screen. A swarm of dark shapes, like a cloud of malevolent bees, was closing in on them with unsettling speed. Could be the welcome committee, Miko chimed in over the comms, his voice tinged with that unholy excitement reserved for mad scientists and children on sugar highs. Communicate our gratitude with lasers, Kira snapped, eyes locked on the incoming threat. Turk didn't need to be told twice. His fingers danced over the weapon's console as the ship's lasers fired up with a mechanical growl. The first volley lit up the void, a dazzling display of destruction that would have made a pyrotechnician weep with envy. Contact, Turk reported, watching the screen as several of the ominous shapes disintegrated into cosmic dust. But there's a lot more where that came from. They're not stopping, Jax observed dryly. It's like trying to swat a swarm of space mosquitoes. Focus on thinning them out, Kira ordered, her tone brooking no argument. Lena was already on it, her fingers flying over her console. I'm trying to find a pattern in their movement, something we can exploit. Well, do it quickly, Turk urged, unleashing another volley of laser fire. I'm running out of witty one-liners. The ship bucked again under the assault, the crew gripping their stations with white-knuckled determination. Captain, I might have something, Lena called out, her voice a thread of hope in the chaos. See this cluster here? They're protecting something, maybe a control unit or a nexus point. A weak spot, Kira asked, the tension in her voice barely concealed. Potentially. If we can hit it, we might disrupt their coordination, Lena suggested, a spark of brilliance lighting her eyes. Kira nodded, already calculating the odds. All right, let's make that our target. Jax, help Lena pinpoint the damn thing. Miko, get ready to boost our shields if we take another hit. On it, Captain, Miko replied, the sound of frantic typing in the background. Turk, you think you can thread the needle? Kira asked, a challenge in her voice. Turk grinned, his usual demeanor morphing into one of intense focus. Captain, I was born to sow chaos. The celestial whisper veered sharply, the ship groaning under the strain as it danced through the swarm with an agility that belied its age. The crew held their breath, every second stretching into eternity. There, Lena said, pointing at a cluster on the screen. Got it, Turk confirmed, his eyes narrowing as he lined up the shot. Firing now. A lance of pure energy shot from the ship's cannons, cutting through the swarm with lethal precision. It hit the target dead on, the resulting explosion sending a shockwave through the enemy ranks. The swarm faltered, their movements suddenly chaotic and disorganized. Whatever intelligence had been guiding them was now silent. We did it. Jax crowed, punching the air triumphantly. Don't get too comfortable, Kira warned, though a smile tugged at her lips. We're not out of this yet. Miko's voice came through, a note of grim satisfaction in his tone. Captain, the rift's activity is changing. That hit must have triggered something. Well, that's either good news or very bad news, Kira replied, eyeing the swirling anomaly with renewed suspicion. Lena, what do you see? Give me a minute, Lena muttered, her fingers flying over her console. Captain, it looks like there's a structure within the rift. It's definitely not natural, a structure, Turk repeated, skepticism lacing his words. You mean someone built a shack in hyperspace, more like a fortress, Lena corrected, her brow furrowing as she examined the readings. Jax leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips. Let's hope they're not home. I'm not sure we're up for another housewarming, best guess, Lena, Kira asked, her tone all business. Lena hesitated, then sighed. This rift, it's been engineered. Someone or something created it. Silence fell over the bridge, the weight of the revelation pressing down like a lead blanket. Suddenly, the stakes felt a hell of a lot higher. Great, Turk said, breaking the silence. So we're not just fighting a cosmic anomaly. We're dealing with whoever's behind the curtain, too. Any clue who might be throwing this little interstellar party? Kira asked, eyes scanning the monitors for any hint of an answer. If I had to guess, it's someone with a really twisted sense of humor, Miko said, his voice carrying a hint of admiration for the sheer audacity of it all. We need to figure out what they want, Kira decided, her mind racing through possibilities. Jax, Lena, keep scanning. Find us a way to get closer without getting turned into space dust. On it, Captain, Jax confirmed, already lost in the data. Turk, keep an eye on those remaining bogies. I don't want any surprises, Kira instructed, her tone brooking no argument. Aye, Captain. I'll keep us clear, Turk replied, his gaze never wavering from the viewport. As the crew worked, Kira allowed herself a moment of reflection. The universe had a funny way of keeping them on their toes, and she couldn't help but feel like the punchline was just around the corner. Think we'll ever catch a break? Lena asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Doubtful, Kira replied, a wry smile tugging at her lips. But wouldn't life be boring if we did? Their banter was interrupted by a sudden, insistent beeping from Lena's console. All eyes turned to her, anticipation crackling through the air. Captain, I've found a path through the anomaly, Lena announced, her voice steady and sure. It's tight, but it'll get us closer. Good work, Lena, Kira praised, her heart thumping with a mixture of excitement and nerves. All right, team, here we go. Eyes sharp, and let's not do anything stupid. Define stupid, Jax quipped, a cheeky grin on his face. Anything that gets us blown up before lunch, Kira shot back, a chuckle escaping despite herself. The celestial whisper plunged into the path Lena had mapped, the crew holding their breath as the rift closed in around them. It was a journey through the unknown, every second a test of their resolve and resourcefulness. Steady as she goes, Turk muttered, his fingers dancing over the controls with the grace of a concert pianist. Captain, I'm picking up something, Lena said, her eyes wide with disbelief. It's a ship, a big one. What do you mean big? Kira asked, her gaze snapping to Lena's screen. Think big enough to squash us like a bug, Lena replied, a note of awe in her voice. Well, that's just fantastic, Turk grumbled. First a swarm, now a battleship. Anything else? Let's hope not, Jack said, his tone only half joking. As they drew closer, the outlines of the massive vessel became visible, a hulking behemoth that dwarfed the Celestial Whisper. Its design was unfamiliar, sleek and menacing, like a predator waiting to strike. What kind of ship is that? Kira wondered aloud, her mind racing with possibilities. Definitely not from our neck of the woods, Miko commented, his fascination palpable even through the comms. Captain, we've got incoming transmissions, Lena reported, her fingers flying over the console. It's garbled, but I'm working on it. Let's hear what our new friends have to say, Kira said, her voice steady despite the growing tension. The bridge was filled with a cacophony of static, a grating noise that set everyone's nerves on edge. Then, through the interference, a voice emerged, its tone cold and mechanical. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted space. Withdraw immediately or face termination. Well, that's not very neighborly, Jax remarked, earning a snort from Turk. Options? Kira asked, her mind working overtime to calculate their next move. We could try talking to them, Lena suggested, though her tone made it clear she didn't believe it would do much good. Or we could give their engines a friendly nudge, Turk offered, his fingers twitching over the weapon's controls. Let's not poke the bear just yet, Kira decided, her eyes narrowing at the screen. Lena, try to clean up that signal. I want to know who we're dealing with before we do anything rash. You got it, Captain, Lena replied, already hard at work. The ship hovered on the edge of the unknown, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. It was the kind of moment that made you want to laugh just to keep from screaming. Whatever happens, at least we've got a front row seat to the universe's most exclusive show, Jack said, his voice laced with sardonic amusement. Yeah, lucky us, Turk replied, shaking his head. Remind me to get tickets to something less life-threatening next time. As Lena continued her work, the crew settled into a tense silence, each one acutely aware of the stakes. They were dancing on a knife's edge, one misstep away from oblivion. Finally, Lena's console beeped, and she turned to Kira with a mix of triumph and urgency. Captain, I've got it. The signal's from a faction called the Rift Syndicate. They seem to be the ones pulling the strings here. Well, it's nice to have a name for our new nemesis, Kira said dryly. Let's see if we can't have a little chat. With the transmission cleaned up, Kira opened a channel, her voice firm and authoritative. This is Captain Kira Vial of the Celestial Whisper. We mean no harm. We're here to investigate the anomaly and would appreciate not being turned into space dust. There was a pause, the kind that stretched like a rubber band on the edge of snapping. Then the voice returned, still cold, but with a hint of curiosity. Captain Vial, your presence here is unexpected and unadvisable. The Rift Syndicate has no interest in outside interference. Kira's lips curled into a defiant smile. Funny, because we've got a vested interest in not being annihilated. How about we compare notes instead of trading shots? Another pause, this one longer, and then the voice replied, Very well, Captain Vial. We will allow you to approach. But be warned, any sign of aggression and we will not hesitate to defend our interests. Kira glanced at her crew, a new determination in her eyes. All right, team. Let's see what the Rift Syndicate has to teach us. Just remember, no sudden moves, no stupid stunts, promise. Jax asked, a smirk playing on his lips. Cross my heart, Kira replied, her tone both teasing and serious. As the Celestial Whisper began its cautious approach, the crew steeled themselves for whatever came next. They had no idea what they were walking into, but one thing was clear. They weren't about to back down. Not now, not ever. The Celestial Whisper, a ship that had seen better days, creaked and groaned under the weight of cosmic pressure like an old man bending to pick up a penny. Captain Kira Vial sat in her chair, feeling every one of those creaks deep in her bones. The bridge was a flurry of activity, lights flickering like a cheap motel sign, as her crew scrambled to keep things from falling apart. "Lena, keep that signal clear," Kira barked over the din, doing her best impression of a calm and collected captain. She figured if she was going to play the part, she might as well go for an Oscar. "I'm trying, Captain, but it's like herding cats with a laser pointer," Lena shot back, her fingers working the console like a magician with a hangover. "Speaking of which," Turk chimed in from his post, "any chance we can send them a gift basket? Maybe some nice cheeses and a note saying please don't vaporize us." "Yeah, with a side of sorry for intruding in your death trap," Jax added, eyes never leaving his screen. It took a special kind of gallows humor to lighten the mood in a situation like this, but Jax was definitely up for the challenge. Meanwhile, Miko was hunched over his own console, looking more like a mad scientist than ever. "I'm detecting energy fluctuations, Captain. It's like the rift's having a little temper tantrum." "Fantastic," Kira muttered, rubbing her temples. "Just what we need, a cosmic hissy fit." As if on cue, the ship shuddered, the lights dimming for a heartbeat before flickering back to life. The celestial whisper had always been temperamental, but today it seemed extra pissed. "Status report," Kira called, trying to keep the anxiety out of her voice. "Shields at 30% and dropping," Turk replied, his tone grim. "Weapons systems are about as useful as a chocolate teapot right now." "And the engines?" Kira asked, bracing for the answer. "Let's just say they're doing their best impression of a constipated tortoise," Jax answered, his usual humor only slightly diminished by the sense of impending doom. "Perfect," Kira said, slumping back into her chair. "Looks like we're in for a hell of a ride." For a moment, silence descended over the bridge, the weight of their predicament pressing down like a lead balloon. It was one of those rare moments where even sarcasm couldn't lighten the mood, and that was saying something on the celestial whisper. "We're not dead yet," Kira said finally, breaking the silence with a determination that surprised even her. "And until we are, we've got a job to do." "Dying's only fun if you can do it twice," Miko quipped, a half-crazed grin on his face. Kira gave him a look that could melt steel. "Let's try to avoid doing it even once, shall we?" Just then, Lena's console let out a high-pitched whine, the kind that made you want to punch something. "Captain, I'm losing contact with the Velatrix. Communications down to a whisper." "More like a cosmic game of telephone," Turk muttered, scanning the chaos outside. "And we're the poor bastards stuck on the line," Kira sighed, her frustration bubbling to the surface like a bad rash. "We need to keep moving. Lena, see if you can boost the signal. I don't like the idea of flying blind." "On it, Captain," Lena said, though her voice betrayed the kind of doubt that didn't inspire confidence. "Turk, Jax, keep an eye on those systems. If anything else decides to crap the bed, I want to know before we're up to our necks in it." "Aye, Captain," they chorused, their commitment as solid as a politician's promise. As the ship plowed through the anomaly's turbulent wake, Kira felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a particularly heavy backpack. It was times like these that made her wonder why she hadn't taken up a less stressful career, like juggling chainsaws. "Engine outputs fluctuating," Jax reported, his voice straining to keep the worry at bay. "Feels like we're riding a mechanical bull with a mean streak." "Just hold her steady," Kira instructed, though she knew it was like asking a cat to fetch. "We need to make it through this." "Captain, I've got a visual on the big ship," Lena announced, her tone a mix of awe and dread. "It's repositioning." Kira's mind raced. The hulking silhouette of the Rift Syndicate's vessel was growing larger on their screens, like an overbearing mother-in-law on a surprise visit. "Keep us on course. And try not to piss them off." "Too late for that," Turk muttered, his fingers tapping nervously at his console. As the celestial whisper limped toward the Syndicate's ship, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into a trap. It was like knowing you were the punchline in a joke that was about to get really unfunny. "We need to be ready for anything," Kira said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Lena, any luck with that signal?" "I'm working on it," Lena replied, her hands a blur of motion. "But it's like trying to unscramble an egg." Take all the time you need, just as long as it's now, Kira said, managing a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. The silence stretched, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's struggling systems and the occasional curse from Jax as he battled the controls. Every second felt like an eternity, each heartbeat a reminder of just how little control they had over their fate. "Captain, we've got movement," Turk said suddenly, his voice sharp with urgency. "The Syndicate ship's launching something." Kira's heart skipped a beat. "Weapons? Hard to say," Turk replied, a frown creasing his forehead. "Could be a shuttle, could be a bomb. All I know is it's heading right for us." "Well, that's just peachy," Lena said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe they're sending us a fruit basket." "With our luck, it's probably a pineapple grenade," Jax replied, his fingers flying over the controls in a desperate attempt to coax more speed out of the ship. "All right, team, this is it," Kira said, her voice firm with the kind of resolve that comes from having no other options. "Brace for impact and prepare for the worst." The crew worked in tense silence, each one acutely aware of the stakes. They'd been in tight spots before, but this felt different. This felt like the kind of day you'd look back on and think, "Why didn't I call in sick?" The approaching object drew closer, a dark shadow against the swirling chaos of the rift. Kira watched it come, her mind racing with possibilities. There was no time for second-guessing, no room for doubt. All they could do was hope for a miracle, or at least a delay in their inevitable obliteration. "Captain, we're being hailed," Lena said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "It's the Syndicate." "Put them through," Kira ordered, already steeling herself for the worst. The bridge filled with the cold, mechanical voice of the Syndicate representative, its tone devoid of any warmth. "Captain Vial, you persist in your folly. Withdraw now, or we will be forced to take decisive action." Kira squared her shoulders, her voice steady as she replied. "We're not here to fight, we're here to survive. Let us through and we'll be out of your hair sooner than you can say intergalactic incident." There was a pause, then the voice returned, colder than a lawyer's heart. "Proceed with caution, Captain Vial. Your actions will determine your fate." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in a stunned silence. It was the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you've gone deaf or if the universe is just holding its breath. "Well, that was inspiring," Jax said finally, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I feel like we just got permission to walk into our own funeral." "Let's not give them the satisfaction," Kira said, her eyes fixed on the view ahead. "Full speed ahead and let's see what we're made of." With renewed determination, the crew set to their tasks, each one acutely aware that the next few minutes could be their last. It was a sobering thought, but also a galvanizing one. They were in this together for better or worse, and they'd be damned if they went down without a fight. As the celestial whisper powered forward, its system straining against the tide of cosmic chaos, Kira couldn't help but feel a spark of defiance. They were up against impossible odds, but they weren't out yet. Not by a long shot. "Captain, the path's clearing," Lena said, her voice tinged with relief. "We might just make it through." "Then let's not waste any time," Kira replied, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers. Let's show these bastards what the celestial whisper can do." With a collective breath, the crew braced themselves for whatever lay ahead. They were battered and bruised, but still standing, a crew that refused to go quietly into the void. And as the ship barreled toward the unknown, Kira knew they wouldn't stop now, not until they'd fought their way to the bitter end. The celestial whisper groaned like a retiree's back after a bad night's sleep, lurching through space with all the grace of a headless chicken. Kira Vial perched on her captain's chair like a cat on a hot tin roof, trying to maintain composure as the universe threw a cosmic tantrum around them. "Any chance we can get a refund on this hyperspace ride?" Kira muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "Only if you've got the receipt," Turk replied, his fingers dancing over his console like a pianist with a caffeine addiction. "And even then, I'm guessing the customer service is about as friendly as a Rottweiler with a toothache." Jack snorted, eyes glued to his display. "Could be worse." We could be stuck in one of those budget transport pods. At least here, we've got front row seats to our own funeral. Cheerful as ever, Jax, Kira said, rolling her eyes. Lena, how's that signal boost coming along, like trying to teach a rock to sing opera? Lena grumbled, frowning at her console. We're getting nothing but white noise and static. It's like having a conversation with my ex. Kira wanted to laugh, but the situation was teetering on the edge of a serious nosedive. The Syndicate ship was looming larger in their viewports, an ominous shadow that promised nothing good. She needed a plan, and fast. "All right, listen up," she said, drawing the crew's attention. "We're not out of this yet. We've got one more trick up our sleeve. Please tell me it involves a rabbit and a hat," Turk quipped. "Because I'm fresh out of miracles." "Close," Kira replied, forcing a grin. "We're going to take a little detour. There's an artifact in this rift that might just be our ticket out." "An artifact?" Jax said, raising an eyebrow. "Please tell me it's not another one of those cursed relics that turns you into a zombie or something." "Not unless zombies are made of pure energy," Kira replied, glancing at Miko, who was watching the conversation with an unsettlingly eager grin. "Dr. Thal," Miko, practically vibrating with excitement, gestured at his screen. "It's an ancient alien device. The readings are off the charts, a veritable jackpot of cosmic energy. If we can harness it, we might be able to stabilize the rift and get the hell out of Dodge. Or it could blow us all to Kingdom Come," Jax pointed out, his voice dripping with gallows humor. "But hey, at least we'll go out with a bang, right?" "I'm banking on the former," Kira said dryly. "Turk, plot a course to the artifact. Lena, keep working on that signal. We need all the help we can get." "Aye, Captain," they chorused, their commitment as shaky as the ship itself. As the celestial whisper changed course, the rift's energy crackling around them like a live wire, Kira felt a flicker of hope. It was a long shot, sure, but it was the only shot they had. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," Turk announced, his voice taut with anticipation. "Whatever that thing is, it's big." "Size isn't everything," Lena quipped, earning a chuckle from Jax. "But let's hope it's as useful as it is impressive." The artifact came into view, and even Kira had to admit it was a sight to behold. It floated in the void like some cosmic bauble, a swirling mass of energy and alien technology that seemed to hum with potential. Or maybe it was just hungry. Either way, it was their best shot at getting through this mess. "All right, team," Kira said, her voice steady despite the butterflies doing a Kangal line in her stomach. "Let's see if we can make this thing work for us." Miko leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with a mix of wonder and mad scientist glee. "I've got a theory, Captain. If we can interface with the artifact, we might be able to tap into its energy reserves and use it to stabilize the ship." "Sounds easy enough," Jax said, his tone as dry as the vacuum of space. "Just like defusing a live bomb with a toothpick and a prayer." "Piece of cake," Turk added, his grin as lopsided as the ship's trajectory. "Where's the fun if there's no risk of spontaneous combustion?" Kira shook her head, unable to suppress a smile. "Let's just try not to turn ourselves into cosmic mincemeat." "All right." Miko was already engrossed in the data streaming across his screen, his fingers flying over the controls with a speed that suggested he'd consumed his body weight in caffeine. "I'm initiating the interface sequence. Hold onto your butts, because things might get a little bumpy." "Just the way I like it," Jax said, bracing himself as the ship shuddered under the strain of the maneuver. Kira watched as the console displays flickered, the ship's system struggling to keep up with the influx of energy. It was like trying to plug a toaster into a supernova, and she could only hope it didn't end with them all charred to a crisp. "Captain, the artifact's responding," Lena reported, her voice tinged with awe. "It's like it's waking up. Let's hope it's in a good mood," Turk muttered, his eyes glued to the rapidly changing data. The ship lurched, the lights flickering as the artifact's energy coursed through its systems. Kira gripped her chair, every muscle tense as she waited for the inevitable explosion or miraculous save. Energy levels stabilizing, Miko said, his voice tinged with surprise. It's working, Captain. The ship's systems are responding. Kira let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Good. Keep it steady, Miko. Let's not push our luck. Luck's for gamblers, Jack said, his expression grim. And we're in too deep to fold now. The artifact's energy continued to pulse through the ship, the rift's turbulence slowly subsiding as the celestial whisper found its balance. It was a tenuous piece, but it was better than nothing. Captain, we're still getting interference from the Syndicate ship, Lena said, her fingers dancing over her console. They're not happy about our little escapade. Let them stew, Kira replied, a defiant glint in her eye. We're not out of this yet, but at least we're not sitting ducks anymore. Always a plus, Turk said, his grin returning as the ship's system stabilized. How long do we have to keep this dance going? Miko. Long enough to get out of the rift, if we're lucky, Miko replied, his tone focused as he monitored the interface. The artifact's energy isn't infinite, but it should be enough to get us clear. Assuming we don't hit any more cosmic potholes, Jax added, his fingers tapping a restless rhythm on his console. Let's not borrow trouble, shall we? Kira said, her gaze fixed on the view ahead. We've got enough on our plate as it is. The crew worked in tense silence, each member focused on their tasks as they navigated the unpredictable currents of the rift. It was a delicate dance, one misstep away from disaster, but they were holding their own. Captain, we're approaching the edge of the rift, Turk reported, his voice tinged with hope. We might just make it. Don't jinx it, Jax warned, his eyes scanning the data for any sign of trouble. We're not out of the woods yet. Keep us on course, Kira instructed, her voice steady but firm. Let's get through this and show the universe what we're made of. With each passing moment, the rift's grip on the ship loosened, the turbulent energy giving way to the calm of open space. It was a hard-won victory, but one that felt all the sweeter for the struggle. Captain, we're clear, Lena announced, relief evident in her voice. The rift's behind us. Kira allowed herself a small smile, the tension in her shoulders easing as the ship settled into the quiet embrace of space. They'd done it. Against all odds, they'd managed to pull off the impossible. Nice work, everyone, she said, a note of pride in her voice. Now let's put some distance between us and that rift before it changes its mind. Gladly, Turk replied, his fingers deftly adjusting their course. I've had enough excitement for one day. Speak for yourself, Miko said, his eyes still fixed on the artifact's data. We've unlocked a treasure trove of information here. This could change everything, assuming we live long enough to study it, Jax pointed out, his tone as sardonic as ever. Let's focus on surviving the next 5 minutes before we start planning our Nobel speeches. Agreed, Kira said, her gaze sweeping over her crew with a mix of gratitude and resolve. We've got a long road ahead, but at least we're traveling it together. As the celestial whisper sped away from the rift, its crew battered but unbroken, Kira felt a renewed sense of purpose. They'd faced down the abyss and emerged stronger for it, and she had no doubt they'd do it again if they had to. Captain, the Syndicate's still on our tail, Lena warned, her eyes scanning the data for any sign of pursuit. They're not giving up without a fight. Let them try, Kira said, her voice steely with determination. We'll be ready. With a shared sense of resolve, the crew of the Celestial Whisper prepared for whatever lay ahead. They were a ragtag bunch, held together by little more than stubbornness and sheer will, but they were far from defeated. As the ship powered through the void, the artifact's energy still humming in its veins, Kira knew they'd face whatever came next with the same tenacity that had brought them this far. They were survivors, every last one of them, and they weren't going down without a fight. The Celestial Whisper creaked and groaned like an arthritic old man getting out of bed after a long night of poker, but somehow it held together. Kira leaned back in her chair, the leather worn and cracked from years of abuse, and scanned the chaos of the bridge. They'd been through hell and back, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to hope. Captain, I think we might have something, Turk announced, his eyes glued to the console, brow furrowed with concentration. This artifact, it's like a cosmic Swiss Army knife. It's showing pathways, dimensional pathways. Dimensional pathways, Jax chimed in, his voice dripping with skepticism. You mean like shortcuts through the universe that don't involve turning inside out? Exactly, Miko jumped in, practically bouncing in his seat. It's projecting a map to an alternate dimension. One where Earth might still exist, or a dimension where everyone's a flesh-eating slug, Jax countered, raising an eyebrow. But hey, you win some, you lose some. Let's try to win this one, Kira said, masking her hope with a casual nod. Turk, plot a course. Lena, keep jamming those syndicate signals. I don't want them crashing our little party. Already on it, Cap, Lena replied, fingers dancing over her console like a pianist in a noir bar. If they get so much as a whiff of our tail, it'll be because we're smelling the roses. The celestial whisper, ever the reluctant workhorse, shuddered its way toward the artifact's coordinates. The view outside the ship was less serene void and more visual migraine, a swirling mess of colors and lights that danced in a way that suggested the universe was either very drunk or very angry, possibly both. Captain, this path looks like it was drawn by a toddler on a sugar high, Turk said, his voice steady despite the insanity on his screen. But if Miko's right, it's our best shot. Not exactly reassuring, but beggars can't be choosers, Kira muttered. Let's go. As they entered the pathway, the ship's hull vibrated with the kind of energy that made fillings buzz and bones rattle. Kira exchanged a look with Jax, who gave her a grin that was more grimace than comfort. Feels like riding a roller coaster to hell, he said over the din, but at least the view's interesting. Miko was glued to his screen, his expression a mix of excitement and genuine madness. The artifact's maintaining stability. If we keep this up, we'll punch through to the other side in no time. Assuming we don't become interdimensional roadkill first, Jax pointed out, ever the optimist. Kira shook her head, refusing to let doubt creep in. Keep it together, everyone. We're almost there. The ship rattled and groaned as it hurtled through the pathway, streaks of light flashing past the hull like a cosmic light show on steroids. Every second felt like an eternity, but they pressed on, driven by the tantalizing possibility of finding Earth, or at least something resembling home. Captain, we're approaching the dimensional threshold, Turk reported, his tone a mixture of disbelief and anticipation. Prepare for whatever this is. Cryptic as always, Turk, Kira said, gripping the edge of her chair. All right, team, hold on to something. Miko. Miko was practically glowing with excitement, his fingers a blur over the controls. Engaging the artifact interface now. Let's see what kind of rabbit hole we're diving into. The ship lurched, the lights flickering as the artifact's energy surged through the systems. The view ahead shifted, the swirling chaos giving way to a scene so familiar it was almost painful. Is that? Lena trailed off, her voice catching in her throat. Kira stared, unable to believe her eyes. Earth, she breathed, the word barely audible over the hum of the ship. It's Earth. Well, I'll be damned, Jax said, his usual sarcasm momentarily eclipsed by genuine wonder. I guess the universe isn't completely screwing us over. Turk let out a low whistle, shaking his head in disbelief. Looks like somebody up there likes us, or hates us slightly less today. As the celestial whisper drifted closer, the reality of their situation began to sink in. Earth was right there, as real and tangible as the ship beneath their feet. But before they could celebrate, the console began to beep in a way that suggested something was going wrong again. Captain, we've got a problem, Lena said, her eyes wide as she scanned the data. The pathway's destabilizing. If we don't act fast, we'll be stuck between dimensions. Lovely, Jax muttered, rolling his eyes. I always wanted to be a footnote in someone else's horror story. Suggestions? Kira asked, her mind racing. Miko made a noise that was somewhere between a gasp and a laugh. We can use the artifact's energy to anchor ourselves here, but it'll be tricky. I'll need everyone's help. You heard him, Kira said, snapping back into command mode. Turk, keep us steady. Lena, divert power to the artifact. Jax, make sure our systems don't fry in the process. Piece of cake, Jax responded, though his grin was more grimace than anything else. Just another Tuesday on the Celestial Whisper. As the crew scrambled to their stations, the ship began to shudder anew, the energy from the artifact crackling through the systems like an overcaffeinated squirt on a power line. Kira gripped her chair, her mind a whirl of plans and contingencies. "Captain, artifacts holding," Turk reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We're anchored, but just barely." "Good enough," Kira said, a note of relief in her voice. "Let's see if we can save our planet without blowing it up." Miko worked feverishly, his fingers flying over the controls as he directed the artifact's energy with the precision of a mad scientist on a mission. "If we can stabilize the dimensional bridge, we might be able to restore Earth to our original star map. Assuming it doesn't decide to implode first," Jax quipped, though there was a hint of real concern behind his words. "One crisis at a time," Kira replied, trying to keep her tone light. "Turk, Lena, keep those systems stable." "Doing our best, Cap," Lena said, her fingers a blur as she rerouted power. "Just keep Miko from going full Frankenstein." The ship groaned and shuddered, the lights flickering ominously as the artifact's energy surged through the hull. It was a race against time, with everything hanging in the balance. "Almost there," Miko muttered, his focus absolute. "Just a little more." And then, with a final, bone-rattling jolt, the ship settled. The artifact's energy pulsed through the systems, stabilizing the dimensional bridge and anchoring Earth firmly within their universe. "We did it," Turk breathed, his voice tinged with disbelief. "We actually did it." "Color me impressed," Jax said, his usual sarcasm muted by genuine relief. "And a little shocked, if I'm honest." Kira allowed herself a small smile, the weight of the universe lifting from her shoulders. "Nice work, everyone. We've got Earth back on the map." The crew exchanged glances, a mixture of relief, disbelief, and something close to joy in their expressions. They'd done the impossible, pulled off a miracle with nothing more than grit, determination, and a cosmic artifact that could have just as easily destroyed them. "Captain, the Syndicate's still out there," Lena reminded her, though there was a note of confidence in her voice now. "We're not out of the woods yet." Kira nodded, her gaze sweeping over her crew, each one battle-worn but unbroken. "Let them come. We've got what we came for, and we're not going down without a fight." As the Celestial Whisper settled into its new reality, Kira felt a renewed sense of purpose. They'd faced the abyss and emerged stronger, and she had no doubt they'd face whatever came next with the same tenacity that had brought them this far. "Let's get Earth back to where it belongs," she said, a determined glint in her eye. "And show the universe what we're really made of." With their mission clear and their spirits high, the crew of the Celestial Whisper prepared for whatever lay ahead. They'd beaten the odds, and now they were ready to take on the universe, one sarcastic quip at a time. The Celestial Whisper hummed a familiar tune of creaks and groans as it floated in the void, its crew gathered in the cramped mess hall. The place was cluttered with grimy mugs and suspiciously stained chairs, but it was home, or as close as you could get when your actual home was an existential question mark. "Earth's back, folks," Kira said, raising a mug filled with what passed for coffee. The stuff was darker than the void outside and tasted like ambition, bitter, with a hint of burnt desperation. "That's gotta mean something, right?" "Yeah," Jax replied, lifting his own mug with a half-hearted smile. "Means we're not completely useless. Just mostly." Miko leaned back, rubbing his eyes beneath his glasses, which somehow remained intact through their recent cosmic shenanigans. "Honestly, I didn't think we'd pull it off. Thought we'd be worm food in some alternate dimension by now." "Speak for yourself," Lena quipped, jabbing a thumb at her console in the corner of the room. "I had a backup plan, become an immortal AI haunting the ship systems. Trick the next crew into solving my unfinished business." "Charming," Kira said, suppressing a laugh. "What unfinished business? Winning at solitaire." "The virtual kind," Turk snorted. "We're a real band of misfits, aren't we? Saving planets one card game at a time." Jax shrugged, his expression shifting to one of mock epiphany. I think we've learned something important. Even in a universe where Earth plays hide and seek, we've got each other, and each other's terrible jokes. Kira raised her mug again, this time with genuine warmth. Here's to that. And to not getting killed by the syndicate. The crew echoed her toast, clinking mugs with a lack of enthusiasm that was almost heartwarming. They had, after all, just returned the planet to its rightful place, albeit without a manual or a customer service hotline to call when things went awry. So, what now? Miko asked, glancing around the room. We've got Earth back on the map and the syndicate's probably sharpening their knives. Any grand plans, Captain plans? Kira mused, her eyes narrowing with thought. I was thinking we do what we do best. Fly under the radar, keep our noses clean, or as clean as they get, and see what other secrets the universe is hiding. Jack sipped his coffee, making a face like he'd bitten into a lemon. So, same old, same old. Just with more existential dread. Pretty much, Kira replied, grinning. Besides, we've got a reputation to uphold. The universe's most dysfunctional found family. Great. I love being part of a dysfunctional legacy, Lena said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. At least we've got a killer soundtrack, courtesy of the Celestial Whisper's constant whining, Turk added, chuckling. I swear I heard it sing we will rock you during that last hyperspace rift. As the laughter died down, a comfortable silence settled over the crew. They were together, alive, and their planet was back where it belonged, or so they hoped. It was enough to make even the most cynical among them feel a flicker of something like hope. Do you think Earth's changed? Miko wondered aloud, his eyes distant as if peering through the ship's hull at the blue marble they'd missed so dearly. Probably, Jack said, his tone somber for once. But then so have we. Maybe it's a good thing. Gives us something to look forward to. Kira gave him a thoughtful nod. Change isn't always bad. We've learned to adapt to survive. Maybe Earth's done the same. Or maybe it's overrun with flesh-eating slugs, Lena interjected, her grin wide and unrepentant. Just saying. The conversation drifted into lighter topics, like who would be responsible for cleaning the ship's perpetually sticky floor, an argument no one ever truly won, and which one of them had the worst taste in music. The mundane banter was reassuring, a reminder that while they might be sailing on a tin can through the cosmos, they were still undeniably human. All right, Kira said, standing up and stretching, her joints popping like ancient space debris. Enough philosophizing. We've got systems to check and a syndicate to avoid. Back to work, Turk groaned, but there was a hint of a smile on his lips as he rose to his feet. Can't let the universe think we're slacking off. Damn straight, Jax added, following suit. Let's show them what the crew of the Celestial Whisper is made of. As they dispersed, Kira watched them go, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. They'd been through hell and come out stronger, not just as a crew but as a family. Dysfunctional, sarcastic, and a little bit insane, yes, but a family all the same. She lingered for a moment, the weight of leadership easing from her shoulders like a cloak finally unraveled. Maybe they'd never find all the answers or solve all the universe's mysteries, but they'd face whatever came next together. And that was a victory in itself. Turning to leave, she caught sight of the artifact resting on a nearby console, its once intimidating presence now a comforting reminder of their triumph. It glimmered faintly, as if acknowledging her thoughts, and she nodded to it, a silent promise to keep exploring the unknown, to venture boldly where logic feared to tread. Here's to the next adventure, she whispered, a smile playing on her lips. And with that, she walked out, ready to lead her crew into whatever cosmic chaos awaited them beyond the stars.